In the dusty heart of Montana Territory, where the Rockies scratched the sky like jagged claws and the wind whispered secrets through the sagebrush, lived a man named Harlan Wade. Harlan was a rancher through and through, his hands calloused from years of wrangling cattle and mending fences under the relentless sun. At 42, he was a widower, his wife Sarah taken by fever 5 years back, leaving him with a sprawling spread called the Double Bar W and a heart as barren as the Badlands in drought. The ranch hands were a rough bunch, 10 men who could rope a steer blindfolded but couldn't boil water without scorching it. Meals had devolved into burnt beans and hardtack, morale sinking lower than a snake's belly. Harlan knew he needed help, someone to keep the bellies full and the spirits high. So, one crisp autumn morning in 1878, he rode into the town of Bitter Creek and tacked a notice to the board outside the general store. Wanted, ranch cook for Double Bar W, steady work, room and board provided. Must handle large meals for hard-working men. Inquire Harlan Wade. He didn't specify much else, figuring any soul who could swing a skillet would do. Little did he know, the answer to that notice would upend his world like a stampede through a china shop. Miles away, in a cramped boarding house in Cheyenne, Wyoming, Eliza Thornton stared at the same notice reprinted in a territorial gazette. At 35, she was a widow twice over, first husband lost to a mining accident, second to a no-good gambler's duel. She had 2 children, young Tommy, 8 years old with a mop of red hair and a curiosity that could fill a canyon, and little Grace, 5, with eyes like polished turquoise and a laugh that could melt the frost off a winter morning. Life had been a grind for Eliza. After her second husband's death, creditors had swooped in like vultures, leaving her with nothing but debts and desperation. She worked as a seamstress, her fingers pricked raw, but it wasn't enough to feed her little ones properly. The notice called to her like a beacon. Cooking. She'd been feeding families since she was knee-high to a grasshopper, raised on a farm back east before the war tore everything asunder. But a ranch in Montana? It was a leap into the unknown, fraught with peril, Indians, outlaws, blizzards that could bury a man alive. "Mama, are we goin' to be cowboys?" Tommy asked, his eyes wide as she packed their meager belongings into a worn carpetbag. Eliza smiled, though her heart pounded. "Something like that, darlin'. We're goin' to make a new start." With the last of her savings, she bought stagecoach tickets north. The journey was a trial. Dust-choked roads, rattling wheels, and nights huddled in way stations where the wind howled like banshees. Grace clung to her skirts, Tommy peppered her with questions about buffalo and gunfighters. Eliza prayed she'd made the right choice. When the stage finally lurched into Bitter Creek, Harlan was there to meet any respondents. He expected a grizzled old-timer or perhaps a spinster with a stern face. What stepped down was a woman in a faded calico dress, her auburn hair pinned back, carrying a child on each hip. The townsfolk whispered, Harlan's jaw tightened. "You the one answerin' the notice?" he asked, tipping his hat but keeping his voice gruff. Eliza met his gaze squarely. "That I am, Mr. Wade. Name's Eliza Thornton. These are my young uns, Tommy and Grace." Harlan scratched his stubbled chin. "Children? On a ranch?" It was madness. "Ma'am, this ain't no place for little ones. We've got cattle drives, rough weather." "I can cook, Mr. Wade," she interrupted, her voice steady as a rifle barrel. "And my children ain't no trouble. Tommy can fetch water, Grace can mind herself. We need the work, and you need the help." He hesitated, glancing at the kids. Tommy grinned up at him, missing a front tooth, while Grace shyly buried her face in her mother's shoulder. Something in Harlan softened, a flicker of the loneliness he'd buried deep. "All right, trial basis. 1 month. If it don't work, I'll pay your way back." The ride to the Double Bar W was silent at first, the wagon creaking over ruts as the sun dipped low, painting the prairies gold. Harlan pointed out landmarks, a twisted cottonwood by the creek, the distant silhouette of the herd. Eliza nodded, her mind racing. The ranch house was sturdy, log-built with a wide porch, smoke curling from the chimney. Inside, it was bachelor bare. A long table for the hands, a kitchen with a wood stove, and rooms upstairs. The hands were skeptical when they met her that evening. Big Jim, the foreman, eyed her like a calf at auction. A woman and kids? Boss, you gone loco? But Eliza wasted no time. She rolled up her sleeves and set to work, turning the pantry staples into magic. That first supper, biscuits fluffy as clouds, stew rich with venison and root vegetables, apple pie from canned fruit she'd spiced just right. The men ate like wolves, plates scraped clean, murmurs of approval rippling through the room. "Dang, Miss Eliza, this beats cookies slop by a mile," one hand, young Pete, declared. Harlan watched from the head of the table, a rare smile tugging at his lips. The children, fed and bathed, sat quietly, Tommy's eyes darting around in wonder. As days turned to weeks, Eliza settled in. She rose before dawn, stoking the fire, kneading dough, her hands a blur. The ranch bloomed under her touch, curtains in the windows, wildflowers on the table, laughter echoing where silence had reigned. Tommy tagged along with the hands, learning to mend tack and feed chickens, his chatter filling the air. Grace shadowed her mother, stirring pots with a wooden spoon too big for her hands. Harlan found himself drawn to her. Evenings, after the hands turned in, they'd sit on the porch, stars wheeling overhead. She'd talk of her past, the farms of Ohio, the sorrow of loss. He'd share stories of Sarah, the drives down the Bozeman Trail, the dreams he'd harbored for the ranch. "You're a strong woman, Eliza," he said one night, the crickets serenading them. "Braver than most men I know." She blushed, but her eyes sparkled. "Life don't give you choices sometimes. You just gotta ride the trail you're on." But trouble was brewing, as it often does in the West. Word spread of a gang of rustlers led by Black Jack Carney, a notorious outlaw with a scar like lightning across his face. They'd been hitting ranches along the Yellowstone, driving off cattle under cover of night. Harlan's spread was prime target, fat steers ready for market. One stormy afternoon, as thunder grumbled like distant cannon fire, Tommy burst into the kitchen, breathless. "Mama! I saw men in the hills, strangers with guns." Eliza's heart seized. She glanced out the window, rain lashing the panes. Harlan was out with the herd, miles away. "Stay inside, both of you," she ordered, grabbing the shotgun from above the mantel. But the boy shook his head. "They got horses branded funny, like a twisted K. Kenny's mark." Eliza's mind flashed to her second husband, killed in a card game gone wrong. Rumors said Kenny's gang was involved. Fear turned to resolve. She couldn't let them take what Harlan had built. As dusk fell, the rustlers struck. Hoofbeats pounded through the downpour, shouts echoing as they rounded up steers from the lower pasture. Eliza barricaded the door, Grace whimpering in her arms, Tommy peeking through cracks in the shutters. "We gotta do something, Mama," he whispered. Eliza nodded, her jaw set. "Tommy, you remember that old bell in the barn? The one for Callan the hands?" He nodded, eyes wide. "Run out the back, ring it hard as you can. It'll bring the boys runnin', dot." It was risky, lightning flashed, illuminating the yard like day. But Tommy darted out, small form vanishing into the storm. Moments later, the bell clanged, frantic and loud. The rustlers heard it too. Gunshots cracked, bullets splintering wood. Eliza fired back from the window, her aim true from years of hunting with her pa. One outlaw yelped, clutching his arm. The hands, scattered but close, thundered in on horseback, rifles blazing. Chaos erupted. Horses rearing, men cursing, the storm a furious backdrop. Harlan, drawn by the bell, arrived like a avenging spirit, his colt barking fire. In the melee, Black Jack Carney himself charged the house, spotting Eliza in the window. "You! I know you, Thornton's woman." Her blood ran cold. He was the one, the gambler who'd cheated her husband, sparked the fatal fight. Rage fueled her. As he raised his gun, she squeezed the trigger. The shot hit true, Carney tumbling from his saddle into the mud. The gang scattered, leaderless and outnumbered. The hands rounded up the stragglers, tying them for the sheriff. Harlan burst through the door, rain-soaked and wild-eyed. "Eliza! The kids!" "We're fine," she said, lowering the shotgun, though her hands trembled. He pulled her close, the children rushing into their arms. In that moment, amid the storm's dying roar, something unbreakable formed. The trial month stretched into winter, then spring. The rustlers' defeat made headlines in the territorial papers. Harlan hailed a hero, but he knew the truth. It was Eliza's quick thinking, Tommy's bravery, that saved the day. As wildflowers bloomed across the prairies, Harlan knelt on the porch one evening, a simple gold band in his hand. "Eliza, you answered a notice for a cook, but you've cooked up more than meals. You've brought life back to this place, to me. Will you stay? As my wife?" Tears glistened in her eyes. "I will, Harlan. We've found our home." Tommy hooped, Grace clapped, and the ranch hands cheered from the bunkhouse. The double-bar W thrived, not just with cattle and crops, but with family. Eliza's children grew strong, Tommy becoming a top hand, Grace a spirited rider. And in the years that followed, more little ones joined, filling the house with joy. But the story didn't end there. Whispers of Kenny's gang lingered. Rumors of a hidden cache of stolen gold, buried in the hills. One summer, Tommy, now a teenager, stumbled upon an old map in the attic, tucked in Eliza's carpetbag from that fateful journey. "Mama, what's this?" he asked, unfolding the brittle paper marked with X's and cryptic notes. Eliza paled. "Your pa, my second husband, won it in a card game. Said it led to Kenny's loot. I forgot about it in the rush." Harlan examined it, eyes narrowing. Could be trouble. Or fortune. The family debated. The ranch was prosperous, but gold could secure their future against droughts or hard times. Against better judgment, they decided to hunt it, Harlan, Eliza, Tommy, and even Grace, now 12 and handy with a lasso. They set out at dawn, following the map's clues, a forked creek, a lightning-struck pine, a canyon shaped like a serpent's jaw. The trail was treacherous, steep cliffs, flash floods from sudden rains. Coyotes howled at night, and once, they spotted riders shadowing them, remnants of Kenny's old crew, hungry for revenge. In the Serpent Canyon, they found the spot, a boulder etched with a twisted K, digging feverishly, their shovels struck wood, a chest heavy with gold coins, glittering in the sun. But the shadows closed in. Gunfire echoed off the walls as 3 outlaws charged, faces masked, rifles raised. "Hand it over, Wade," one snarled. Harlan fired back, dropping one. Tommy, quick as a jackrabbit, flanked them with his slingshot, a well-aimed rock stunning another. Eliza, ever the protector, used the chest as cover, her pistol steady. Grace, hiding behind rocks, untied the outlaws' horses, sending them stampeding and scattering the attackers. The last outlaw fled, cursing into the wind. The family escaped with the gold, hearts pounding, bonds forged tighter in the fire of danger. Back at the ranch, they buried half for safekeeping, using the rest to expand, more land, a school for the kids, even a church in Bitter Creek. Harlan and Eliza grew old together, watching sunsets from the porch, their legacy sprawling like the Montana sky. And it all started with a simple notice, answered by a widow with fire in her soul. She didn't just change the meals, she changed everything.